Hello, people. Here you're watching Tech Ed TV with Dr. Edwin Hernandez. We have here a great guest, Carter Williams. He's an entrepreneur, an investor, an MIT graduate. He's an engineer, and now he's the CEO of iSelect Fund. So, how are you, Carter? How's everything going where you are?
Everything is going well. I'm tired of COVID and ready to break quarantine.
Oh, great! Like I think everyone is expecting that. And well, I mean, we look at your profile and we found that you call that America was built by entrepreneurs. Tell us about your that phrase that you have on your profile.
So the I think that entrepreneurs are a unique set of people. It goes really back to Hayek, who's an economist that I pay a lot of attention to, and he sort of said the way the world actually works, the way the economy really works, is there are a whole bunch of frustrated customers out there that see an opportunity, but they only see part of the opportunity. And there are these things called entrepreneurs who are really good at connecting to those customers and listening to them and sort of saying, I listened to 4 or 5 of you who all have a problem, and I see a way to maybe take your problem and put it together into one solution. And then those entrepreneurs go ahead and create a business to solve that problem based on that customer requirement, and then they create something. And I think the neat thing about the United States, it goes back to our founding, is really that is the way the sort of culture is here. It's this sort of concept of people have a problem, and I've got the freedom to create something to go solve that problem, and I'm going to go create a business. And I think that kind of energy really is the secret sauce to what has helped the United States grow, and I think it's what helps a lot of economies grow. And so when I say America was built by entrepreneurs, that's what I mean.
Excellent, excellent. I think we all agree with that. And your latest venture is the iSelect Fund. And what's your main investment focus for the iSelect Fund?
So we invest in agriculture and healthcare related technologies. The principal theme that we have is we spend about $1.7 trillion a year on food in the United States. We spend on the order of 2 trillion a year dealing with illnesses related to poor nutrition. So cardiovascular disease, diabetes, some forms of cancer, some neurological diseases that can be tied back to problems with our diet. And so we look at that healthcare market and that food market really as one market. And the way we sort of see the world right now is people eat the way they do and then go get healthcare to solve the problems of what they ate. We're really thinking about the kinds of technologies both on the healthcare side, devices that can tell you what you should be doing better, and Fitbit's an example, but technologies on that side, genetics and such. And then on the food side, how can we improve the nutritional quality of food by changing the genetics and how we grow crops and the food and the ingredients that we have. So we invest on both sides of that equation, typically in people with PhDs and master's degrees. So we're pretty deep in terms of the next generation science in that area, and we do that globally, but dominantly in the Midwest.
And is any example that you can mention to the audience that you have invested, and any good companies that you see flourishing in the Midwest?
Yeah, so one company is Benson Hill. Benson Hill is that looks at crops, and they can both they can enhance the quality of those crops. So they're working, for example, on a soy crop in which they increase the protein content of that soy crop through both genetics and breeding. And what that allows is where many of us have had Impossible Burger.
Right.
Impossible Burgers. Have you had an Impossible Burger?
I actually love it. It's delicious.
Dude, so making an Impossible Burger is sort of complex, and they use something like a soy as a source of protein. Well, the odd thing is, if you grow, just like you have different kinds of cheeses, different things taste differently. soy grown has different taste. And so Impossible has to spend a lot of time fiddling with that taste to make sure that every single time you have an Impossible burger, it tastes the same. Well, what if you could make sure that the soy coming off in the agricultural process, no matter what's happened with the sun and the rain and all the different things that affect taste, what if that were consistent? You wouldn't need to do as much processing afterwards. You could reduce the cost of Impossible Burger. And so the way we see the future for somebody like Impossible Burger is we want to make sure Impossible Burger is cheaper and better. So we're going to provide the ingredients for that. And we want to make sure those ingredients are set so that when they come off the farm, that they're pretty much a finished good and they don't have to do a lot of processing afterwards, and that would let Impossible Burger get cheaper. So we're Benson Hill, which is one of our companies, is that's one of the things they're focused on. They're improving the taste and nutrition and yield quality of those crops. The benefit is whether it's Impossible Burger or Beyond or any of the people coming out with new alternative meats, they get better ingredients. It's better for the farmer because they can build a specialized crop and get more profit. And then it's better for the supply chain because there's less fooling around with the crop after it comes off the field. So we're focused on those kinds of fundamental building block pieces. And the it's I have built fighter aircraft, I built military, I've built a lot of complex technologies in my career, and this industry is fascinating from the standpoint of there's a lot that goes into our food, and it's a very technically complex subject. They're just great leaders and entrepreneurs in that space, and Benson Hill is one of our investments and is very focused in that area.
Well, you're gonna take a look at Benson Hill right after. We're gonna post some of the links right here below, so our audience can follow up, can check it out because it sounds interesting. I went to CES and I remember they had this area where they had like some synthetic pork. So they have some like meat that tasted like pork. I don't eat pork, but it was vegetables basically. So I tried it, and it actually wasn't that bad. Actually, it tasted kind of different than the burger, in fact, but it was delicious.
There's a fascinating set of things going on. I remember as a kid on Star Trek, they didn't have enough turkey, so Captain Kirk did something the cooks did something to make the machine make ham into turkey for celebrating Thanksgiving. And I didn't realize that Star Trek celebrated Thanksgiving, but they did. And in many ways, we're at this forefront where uh, globally there's a bigger demand for protein. The rest of the world is moving into the middle class. As people move into the middle class, they eat less rice and they want to eat more protein. You would think that maybe that's pigs or cow or beef, or but then alternately there's a way to create alternate meats. And in the alternate meat space, even there it's fascinating. We're looking at technologies like a Benson Hill, which is I'll deliver higher quality soy and it'll go in. But then there are others, and maybe this is the company you looked at. We're actually synthetically replicating meat. There are companies that are, so it's not, hey, I'm taking soy as an alternate to beef, that they're actually synthetically engineering beef
Wow.
in the lab, and it tastes like beef, and they're even synthetically generating the vascular system, and so you can imagine that it would replicate many of the tastes of normal meat without having to put beef out on a pasture to move them around
Well,
and do
it sounds you're fascinated with that technology area. It sounds like a very new field of growth. I think that's the future. I believe that too. And that comes back to the next question. That in the past you mentioned that you work on very sophisticated technologies, and I wonder what happened with the Open Innovation Ventures. Is that something you actually had before? What was the story for that?
so I've been a successful entrepreneur, and so it's in a sense my family office.
Okay.
And, but it was also based on the early part of my career. I started my career at McDonnell Douglas working on fighter aircraft. And that is about a process disciplined, everything's got to follow a procedure, very, very consistent, repeated processes to make sure everything works. And I was part of an array of people that sort of said, how do we keep doing that while also accelerating innovation? And at McDonnell Douglas, I learned from Bill Smith, the father of Six Sigma. So not many people know this. I started implementing Six Sigma in 1990 in lean manufacturing. But then I had which was really novel at that point. That was the first time it was being implemented. I learned from Bill Smith himself, the father of Six Sigma, which was really, really cool. But then moving forward, as we looked harder at how to increase innovation at McDonnell Douglas and then Boeing, I got involved with Henry Chesbrough, who wrote the book Open Innovation. He was one of the original people who really started writing about how do you open up the innovation process so that big companies use outside entrepreneurs. And so I spent some time with Henry Chesbrough on that with my graduate work at MIT. And then afterwards was very involved both at McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, driving an open innovation sort of concept. We created the Ventures group at Boeing. And when I left Boeing in 2004, I was working for the chief technology officer. He retired. I decided to leave Boeing, and I created a startup that later was successful. I sort of transferred that into my own personal investing, and open innovation is sort of, I guess, part of my DNA, and so the name is important to me. But
Of
for the most
course.
part, it's my personal investing activity.
So that comes back to like your investment philosophy. Like, okay, like what do you see in early stage ventures? I think most of the people that are part of this show are either running a startup or building a small business in tech. So what's your strategy for what do you look for those early stage ventures?
Well, I think the classics is the team strong? Is it a big market? So I don't want to dwell on that too much. I think that those are often repeated. I personally focus. I have an affinity to complex technologies because I've lived in that world. But I also, when you start dealing with complex technologies, there's some things that get nebulous, and you're not quite sure what to do. And you're sitting there, it's like, okay, do I make the decision on this based on my own background, or how would I make this decision? And then I go back to Hayek. Hayek said, entrepreneur is someone who goes out and sees these customers and hears what they're saying and figures out a way to react to what they're saying and come out with a product. Now let's think about that. That is really what he was explaining as an MVP, minimally viable product. He was like, who are the early adopters? So Hayek back in the 40s wrote this paper on this. Who are the early adopter customers? And what's a minimally viable product? So that's what Hayek sort of identified, and now that's sort of a routine concept. So within my investment philosophy, I have a tendency towards complex technologies, strong teams that can execute. But then when it starts getting ambiguous, I very quickly sort of move to, is there a voice of a customer in this conversation somewhere that can give me guidance on my investment judgment? If it doesn't look like there's an early adopter customer, if it doesn't look like we can get an MVP, then I'm less interested in the technology or the investment, because that MVP and early adopter customer really gives you the signal of where to invest. It says there are 50 decisions that need to be made here. What are the next 3 decisions I should make so that I increase the quality of the product, I increase the demonstration of what the product can do, and by doing so, I can attract other investors and reduce my cost of capital and grow the business.
Gotcha, gotcha. I think that's a very wise advice for all entrepreneurs there. And one of the things that is very hot right now is energy. And I see from your CV and your experience, you even had a $30 million contract in the energy sector in New York. And in your opinion, what's going on with energy right now, with solar and everything else, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, so I was very involved in the energy sector from 2004 through 2010. And the reference you're making it is a company I was involved in the later part of my career on energy Interpath. And Interpath went in and would put energy efficiency measures in small businesses. So a utility would say, we would like to replace all your light bulbs with compact fluorescent because it would use less energy. My general attitude on energy was really refined in many ways by really one of the founders of the internet, Bob Metcalfe.
Oh, okay.
And what Bob Metcalfe said about the internet was that what they did is they kept reducing the cost of access, and that the key to really powerful innovation is to make the cost of good below the cost of bad. And so my entire philosophy on energy has always been not how do we subsidize energy. The world's in trouble. We need better energy. How do we subsidize energy to get people to adopt cleaner mechanisms? My entire philosophy has always been how do we make the cost of clean lower than the cost of dirty? Because once you do that, 60% of people make their decisions based on price. And if you have a choice between saying, you know what, buy this product because there is some value 20 years down the road to your grandchildren, or buy this product because it's 10 cents cheaper than that other product. But if you can do it for 10 cents cheaper, people are going to buy it. So my philosophy on energy is what needs to be true to reduce the cost of energy. Let's go implement cleaner, cheaper, more secure energy sources in an MVP mode first. And then over time, we can work our way to some of the more complex. So reducing energy use in buildings is much easier than reducing energy use in a car, because gasoline is on a per weight energy density basis so much better than a battery that trying to compete against that is hard. But buildings waste 20 to 30% of their energy because their thermostats are misconfigured, because they have low refrigerant in their air conditioning units. And those are things that you can fix without having to have a PhD in silicone technology.
Gotcha. No, and that's very interesting. And basically, to wrap up in our podcast here, one of the things that all entrepreneurs are excited to see is a successful engineer, because most of the engineering talent, they want to be entrepreneurs, but they have this gap to fulfill, right? Like, how do I gain this management skill set? How do you achieve to be that leader in the group? I don't want to be the CTO. I don't want to be like the VP of engineering. I want to be part of the board of directors. How do I gain those skill set? And in your experience, what are your thoughts and what is your knowledge that you can share to those engineers and inventors that are seeing you, that want to be one day like you, that you have been successfully managing your own venture, you have successfully now investing in multiple companies? What would be your advice to them?
I think become an expert in understanding and interpreting the customer. So, my life is sort of like an optical character recognition device. I've got a bunch of engineering training. I know at the end of the day, everything's 0 and 1s and formulas. And I learned a long time ago that explaining 0s, 1s, and formulas to people, really, they don't get it. Otherwise, they'd be engineers. So then your responsibility, if you want to be effective, is to, like an optical character recognizing device, you have to read everybody's scribbles and turn it into information. And I think that if you can figure out how to do that in your career, if you can figure out how to listen to customers and understand what they're saying in a mathematical formulation, that your level of success will increase.
Gotcha. Well, thank you very much, Carter, for this interview. I think like we're running short on time, but I really thank for your time and advice. I think all our engineers and friends here in this area will be very happy to see your success and will be feeling inspired to follow your path. And maybe, who knows, maybe they can send you an email with to any of your venture funds, so they send you a pitch and you like them, so you guys can connect and maybe build a company. And thank you again. Thank you, Carter.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye, guys.